The following video has been created without the use of AI. Please support your human content creators by liking the video and commenting something down below. Subscribing is optional. Now please, enjoy the show.
When you had awoken in your new body, the world felt upside down. The only reason you weren't screaming from the top of your lungs or whatever they had become was the fact you were pumped with so many anti-pain medicine that the agony of existence had turned to a numb pounding. It felt as if your flesh beneath the plastic was too big for its shell, your brain pushing against your skull, your eyes too big, squeezed by your eye holes, your body too heavy. Making lying on your back felt like the only way existence could be made tolerable. And if you did try to move, the creaky joints of your body twisted and turned into all directions. You were a failure, through and through. But Dr. Sawyer refused to sign your termination papers. With interest, he sat down alone in the observation chamber of your cell, watching you as you writhed and groaned. He did this for hours, for days, for weeks. He was analyzing every little movement you made with diligence. It was unheard of that a failure such as yourself hasn't gone completely over the deep end. But there's something off. You were just calm enough to study, to not repeat the mistakes in the future. But there was also something else that made him sentimental. You had been a research assistant, cute little thing in your 20s. A very good one indeed. And he had hoped turning you into a toy, against your will, no less, would bind you to him forever. After all, who would want a toy working in their laboratories? Aside of him, of course. He had taken great care in erasing your memories, that the only things remaining were your brilliance. Sure, there might be a few things needed to be retold, but your mind should be as sharp as ever. Dr. Sawyer, you made sure that your toy body was conventionally attractive by choosing you to be a Gems doll, specifically Gemma Gems. As silly as the name was, the dolls were very popular with little girls, but also a strange subculture of collectors. The gimmick with the Gems dolls was that they were sold in packages that hid them entirely, each one receiving a different colored gem in their belly button. About 1% of these dolls getting an actual valuable gem put into them. A bit like those troll toys, just more expensive. Dr. Sawyer's eyes narrowed. He was getting a headache. Sighing annoyed, he grabbed his bottled water. Stupid dehydration. He preferred tea, but the person who used to make his tea just right was right now screaming and bashing her head on a concrete floor. I have taken such great care of you, Gemma, and this is how you thank me. Even now I'm neglecting my important research just to make you feel more comfortable. I hope you're happy. He grunted to himself before adding, and you thank me by destroying that beautiful face of yours. It took me hours to get it right. The termination button that would set the entire cell on fire for easy cleaning was right there beneath a glass cube next to him. All he needed to do was put in the release key and press it. But whenever he inserted the key into the mechanism, he just couldn't bring himself to turn it. The furthest he had gotten was feeling the top of the button, unable to press down on it. Angry, mostly at himself for being unable to end the experiment due to the sunk cost fallacy. He jumped up, Turning around, he grabbed his almost fully filled ring binder with his observation notes. He kept one for every toy that piqued his interest. Every day he compared your progress, or lack thereof, with Yarnaby's. He felt as if there was an obvious answer to this problem, but he just couldn't grasp it, at least not yet. It was as if the solution was sitting lazily on his tongue, making him wait in agony to suddenly announce itself. Until now. A knocking took the doctor out of his thoughts. "Door's open," he hissed. Inside came Geoffrey Dean, his intern and your official replacement. Doctor? And what brings you here, Mr. Dean?" Geoffrey inhaled unprofessionally and said calmly, "The results from today's experiment with Project Huggy Wuggy, sir." He offered Sawyer the papers, which the doctor took with a sigh. Almost lazily, he began going through the pages. "In short, the results of pairing Huggy Wuggy with Kissy Missy have been successful. The aggression of Huggy Wuggy has reduced by over 50%, and he is practically docile while she is present." Sawyer stopped flipping the pages and blinked. "So what you're saying is by adding a mate to the enclosure, we can calm them." "It's only in this one case, but it could be promising in the future," and Sawyer snapped his fingers, an idea coming to him. Additionally, he wanted Geoffrey to shut up. Sighing, he slapped the report against his intern's chest before stepping towards the observation glass. "Thank you for your help. It is greatly appreciated, and I will make sure to add a positive comment to your weekly evaluation." Thank you, sir." This would have been the first positive comment. Good, now leave. I have much to do, and no one is to interrupt me for the next. Casually, the doctor looked at his watch. 30 minutes? He glanced up at you. Make that 40. Yes, sir. Moments later, Dr. Sawyer stood before the closed cell door, hands folded behind his back. Eyes shifting as he thought about his approach, but then he just dove in. The problem was that there was evidence that you were decently aggressive. You wouldn't hurt anyone if they were with you in your cell, but you would become violent if touched. And this self-experiment would require a lot of touching. "Oh, Gemma," he sighed upon entering. You squealed like a pig, arcing your back, your head tilting to the side. Your eyes were spinning in their sockets, but Sawyer could tell you were at least attempting to focus on him. That was an acceptable reaction to him. He stopped a few feet away from you, a little disgusted by his own experiment, but science was more important. "I can tell from here that you aren't feeling well." You grunted like a beast, and Sawyer raised an eyebrow. Could you even understand the words he was saying? Biting his tongue, he then leaned forward and said, "You know, you're one of my favorites, right? That's why I treat you so well." Your eyes rolled completely back and you grunted in pain. A bead of sweat ran down Sawyer's neck as he placed a finger on your forehead. For a second, you actually stopped moving and writhing, but then your hand swiped at his face. With a cold, uncaring expression, he swiftly grabbed your wrist before you could hurt him. You're physically much stronger than him, but due to the pain of your toy body, you're also much more sensitive to any sort of touch. And so, he could easily overpower you by virtue of it being just too painful to fight back. He held your arms above your head, pinning you to the ground. Your hips wiggled side to side. The doctor used his knees to pin your legs together, preventing you from kicking him. "This is all for your own good, Gemma," he grunted. He never had a partner resist him like this before. Though, granted, he didn't have that many to begin with, as science had always been more important than frivolous lovemaking or relationships. Perhaps someone else was more qualified for this job, but you were his toy, and he didn't like sharing. His heart was beating with a mix of anxiety and excitement. He knew one false move, you could rip his head off. Your body creaked as it tried to resist his force. And then the most interesting of reactions occurred, something not even the doctor saw coming. The moment he pressed his lips onto yours. After he swallowed his pride, of course. Your body went completely limp. Confused, Dr. Sawyer raised his head. He even let go of your arms. You were just blankly staring up at the ceiling. Sawyer's eyes narrowed as he lifted himself off of you. He was counting. And almost exactly 10 seconds later, your writhing continued, albeit a little slower, though it was picking up speed. He then repeated his actions, pushing you down, kissing you. Quickly he developed a hypothesis, but to fully understand, he needed to go deeper. You going limp, though, was helping him immensely. He continued making out with you, his hands exploring your soft, silicone body, his fingers pinching your chest, getting an excited moan out of you. It was still a little twitchy. Your own hands clasped around his face. A touch he'd usually punish, but punishment would ruin the experiment. Now, Gemma. Not my face, he said like a slightly upset father, and gently took your wrist, placing your hand on his groin. Here plays the music. Now, let's see how much you can take, huh? 3 days later, Dr. Sawyer was casually sitting in his office when Geoffrey entered. "Sir, He stopped mid-sentence, seeing you in a maid dress standing behind Sawyer. "Sir? What is it, intern?" he said, annoyed, as if a toy dressed like a French maid was the most normal thing in the entire world. "I was about to enjoy a nice cup of tea." Geoffrey couldn't take his eyes off you. The last time he had seen you, you were uncontrollably writhing on the floor, screaming in pain and agony, and every attempt at trying to help you ended with you attempting to scratch someone's eyes out. Really, he was about to request your termination again. Boxy Boo, his tests, they have shown results. I was told to get you to personally observe them. You placed a cup before Dr. Sawyer. But as you're about to pour the tea, your arm began to shake, and you could barely hold onto the kettle. "I'll be there in a minute," said Dr. Sawyer quickly. "Out," he then ordered. Yes, sir. Of course, sir." Quickly, Geoffrey left, while Dr. Sawyer scratched his chin. It's been no more than 16 hours, Gemma, since the last time we did this. Isn't this a little early for your tics?" But he couldn't help but smile as he took the kettle out of your hand before sitting you down on his desk. "Let's do this quickly, okay? After all, I have other important things to do outside of you. As it turns out, the afterglow from these activities lasted quite some time for you. The hormones your body produced during them were like the most potent painkiller for your affliction. Sometimes lasting only for about 6 hours, but sometimes for days. But a firm hand on your shoulder and lips pressed against yours were already soothing your damaged mind. You even made that amazing tea again. It was exactly what Dr. Sawyer wanted from you, and more. But as all things come tumbling down, he was eventually betrayed, and he no longer could take special care of you. You returned to your screaming, writhing self, and you couldn't do anything but watch. Even the hour of joy did very little to improve your condition. But now, he had a different way of dealing with your needs, post-hour of joy. Today was like usual, hunting down those pesky rabble from his mad science experiments. That annoying dough man as per usual. He felt like he was the villain of a terrible 90s cartoon with how they all acted. They just didn't get his brilliance. Oh well. He was just about to catch that pesky blue intruder when suddenly a scream distracted him. The automaton he was controlling to chase Dowie stopped mid-movement, almost falling over, as the doctor switched his view from the machine to his chamber. There on the cold metal floor was your writhing body. You had been cleaning the floors diligently and beautifully, and yet your problems had returned in the worst of times. You even kicked over the bucket in your wild flailings. "Gemma!" he shouted, knowing full well you couldn't hear him like this.
"You are doing this in the worst moment possible."
Back when he still had his biological body, he didn't mind doing these things with you, but now his body had been cut up, removing his brain from the rest of his vital parts. The parts that produced hormones. He had completely lost all desires. And you had become a burden, but not one he was willing to terminate just yet. Because you did clean very well.
"I don't have time for this."
He needed to think quickly, and then a solution to his problems popped into his brain. On the automaton screen closest to you, a smiling mouth appeared.
"I think I know who can bother with you."
He then sent the automaton to pick you up, to carry you away, while his main attention returned to Dowie. In the meantime, you are carried into the cell block, the machine holding you in a painful, almost stranglehold. As you were struggling against his vice grip, you were screaming, groaning, moaning, and crying. Your arms and legs creaking into the worst of twisted positions until you are uselessly thrown into the concrete floor.
"Yarnaby, have fun, you two. That's an order. I'm very busy right now and cannot take care of her. Enjoy,"
was all the automaton said before going into standby. Curiously, the Rainbow Lion approached you. Things were beginning to make sense to him. The unnatural screams he heard almost daily came from you all this time. He sniffled you, brushing his head over your body. You slapped him by accident, causing him to jolt backwards. He knew how precious you were to his master, subservient like him, but you enjoyed his presence more often than him. He was a little jealous of you. Truth be told, he was a little jealous of you. as you could do more things, like clean the glass on his brain jar. The beast tilted his head. He understood the pain you were in. He too felt it sometimes. But seeing you like this, he felt pity. His vertical mouth opened, hot steaming salvia dripping on your body. The doctor would never allow you to be devoured by him, so perhaps you wanted him to do something else. Soothe your pain, perhaps. And so, from his second and also primary mouth within his massive jaws, shot out his tongue. Compared to his massive body, it was tiny, but the long, slimy appendage touched your face gently in an attempt to soothe you. It began to gently glide over your face, leaving behind a thick film of salvia. His tongue was so big, almost like a tentacle. And Yarnaby too had a rather curious reaction to the stopping of your seizures. Your body became stiff as your eyes stared into the gaping abyss of Yarnaby's mouth. And then your fingers gently brushed over the back of Yarnaby's tongue before you kissed it. The organ was wet and muscular, its texture strange, almost like that of a wet carpet, but Yarnaby reacted with joy to your touches, wiggling his butt like an excited hound. He clasped his jaws around your head, making sure to not decapitate you, so you had a better angle to kiss him more. You could hear his massive heartbeat faster, and so did yours. You were excited. He was too. Your hand placed against his hard plastic face, when suddenly you felt something heavy pull at your chest. Yarnaby was trying his best to get you out of your dirty maid dress, too excited to really think about how to do it properly, when suddenly you were violently spit out. Body slapping against the floor, head covered in salvia. Your heart was beating so fast it felt as if it was about to jump out of your chest. But why did the lion suddenly spit you out and retreat? You turned to face where he was looking, only to see the automaton of the doctor reawakened.
Dowie seems to have gotten away.
He sounded disappointed.
And since it's your fault this happened, I was thinking of combining our session with your punishment.
The automaton knelt down next to you, quickly pulling off the clothes on your body, throwing them away. Breathing heavily, you stared up at the machine as he waved Yarnaby over.
Don't be shy, Yarnaby.
He purred.
Listen, the both of you. If this little experiment works out as I am imagining right now, I will be doing this much more often. After all, you two are my favorite playthings.
Snickered the doctor as he gently pushed you to the ground.
Hey, you watched the video until the very end. That's very kind of you. But before I say goodbye, I have to shout out all of my lovely channel members, especially my high-ranking darling stewards, who get a members-only video every month. Join the tier for just $4.99. Anyways, we have Nicole Hatcher, Maxi Cat, Alison Watkins, Bella Mare, Mystic Jade 111, Giovanna Moretti, Twilight Mia, Angry Boxman, Hella, Anonymous Weep, and Nicodemus D. Thank you for supporting me. Also, thank you to everybody else who is supporting me. You are keeping me alive.